Arsenal have conceded the lowest amount of XG this season. No other club in England is controlling games or defending better than Arsenal. Join me as I explain how and why. Let's start with some important context. Arsenal almost won the league last year, and with everyone healthy, this is how they lined up. Arteta repopularized this inverted left-back role with Zinchenko after he joined for Man City in the summer. He is maybe one of the most technically gifted footballers I've ever seen. From this role, he was immense, and the knock-on effect of him inverting into this role allowed Xhaka to push further up. Xhaka's role this year was very different from any other year of his at Arsenal. He was much more of a box-to-box midfielder, and having him this high up made his goal contribution skyrocket, especially in the first half of the season. I personally didn't see this coming. When I saw Zinchenko inverting into this left 8 role, I expected Xhaka would start to struggle when he was expected to go closer to the box, but he rose to the occasion, and credit to him for that. Saliba's introduction after being on loan multiple years was a game changer. It moved Ben White to the right, which, similar to Xhaka's change, was surprisingly effective. He loved to do these overlapping runs which allowed Saka to cut in, and this trio right here were great in these tight spaces on the right. And lastly, again, when in possession, these two were phenomenal. Again, Jesus, like Zinchenko, was purchased in the summer and brought almost unmeasurable dynamism back to Arsenal's attack. His off-the-ball work is maybe the best in football, and I believe Pep even called him the best defensive striker in the world, which I really believe because his pressing work is phenomenal. But in attacking phases, these two love to swap spots, adding an element of chaos to their attack, which made it very difficult for defenders to try to deal with. With this in-possession formation, Arsenal became arguably the most exciting attacking football club in England. They attacked at lightning pace, often scoring early in matches. Their 88 league goals from last season was a club record for goals in a Premier League season, but Arsenal allowed 43 goals. That is way too many if they want any chance to win the league. Saliba getting injured showed Holding again couldn't keep up playing in a high line, and their midfield crumbled in high pressure matches at the business end of last year. They couldn't control the most important matches. So what has Arteta done to fix this? Because so far, Arsenal have addressed both of those concerns. Like every other club right now, because of a horribly packed schedule, Arsenal have several players injured at any given moment. But for the most part, this is how they've lined up in big matches. Let's again start with the back line and work our way up. Change number 1 is Tomiyasu. In my opinion, Arsenal's most improved player of the season. He looks so much more comfortable inverting into midfield than last year. If Zinchenko was out, Arsenal's build-up looked ruined most of the match. This year, Takehiro is making sure that that's not the case, as he's been serviceable in that inverted left-back role. Unsurprisingly, his defense in this position has been phenomenal. He plays center back for Japan, so in defensive periods, he locks in and looks much more assured than Zinchenko did last year. Change number 2 is David Raya. Now, I know this is a controversial one amongst Arsenal fans who rightfully fell in love with Aaron Ramsdale last season. However, there are key differences in Raya and Ramsdale's game. The way I like to describe the difference of the two is where Ramsdale is more like a cold shower in the morning that's effective at waking you up and energizing the team. David Raya is more of like a warm blanket. He seems much more calm and assured in every action that he does. He's also much more brave in jumping out and claiming crosses, which it seems Arteta is very keen on. He's also been much better at shooting long balls further up the field, which paired with Havertz has worked well. I'm not trying to write off Ramsdale, but I'm trying to give Raya more credit than I see online. He went straight from Brentford, which no disrespect to them, but that's a big difference from playing in Brentford to Champions League nights in a blink of an eye. So just cut him some slack if he looks a bit nervous, okay? But his calmness and assured movements have made a difference. And change number 3, the biggest change, is in midfield. This is where I have seen the biggest change from Arsenal. They played almost double pivot, especially in big matches. This is the clearest indication on where Arteta's mind is at the moment. It's all about control. Jorginho has been a fantastic value for money signing. His positioning is still fantastic, I think. His physicality still continues to decline with his age. However, he more than makes up with it with fantastic positioning and very good passing, as we saw in the match versus Sevilla in the Champions League when he slid the ball through to Saka, which opened the floodgates. But now let's talk about Declan Rice. Rice is rightfully stealing all of the attention at the moment. He isn't even playing in his preferred position as a single pivot 6. He's playing more as an 8. But he is still killing it and is the single biggest reason to Arsenal's huge leap forward in controlling matches. Rice is everywhere in matches. He isn't even comparable to what Xhaka or Partey are capable of in defensive actions. He anticipates passing much better than the both of them, and his long, powerful strides are much better at cutting out opposition actions. Now, all of this defensive brilliance has, unfortunately for the Gunners, made their attack swing in the other direction. Havertz, for all of his fantastic defensive contributions, still looks looks lost going forward. He's providing very little, if any, progressive passing. This isn't a surprise given how he played at Chelsea last year, but it needs to improve. I have an in-depth video about why I feel Havertz doesn't deserve all the hate that he gets, but has an uphill battle to fulfill his potential at Arsenal if you're interested. Odegaard's chance creation has also considerably fallen this year, which has hurt Arsenal's attack. Let's see how he is after finally getting a long-needed rest. And also, for all of Rice's brilliance in defensive actions, in this more advanced 8 role, he still isn't as good of a facilitator as he can potentially be. This would require a little bit more development. As I mentioned that in a lot of phases of play, Arsenal like to go with a bit of a double pivot in more actions than they did last year, which pushes Tomiyasu a little further back, which again helps in their defensive actions because having such a great defender as Tomiyasu still tucked in more as a traditional left back stops a lot of counterattacks. But because of that, Zinchenko is not here in this position as much, which of course isn't that beneficial for their attack. Arsenal have the 5th most goals this year, but are 12th in XG created. This is not good enough to win the title, but Arsenal at least finally have an elite foundation of control to build upon. So let's see how Arteta will.